football fandom. Welcome to the ChiGuys football podcast, your weekly source for fantasy football news and advice. I'm Donny Mac. With me, as always, is Anthony Bassett. How are we doing today?
Good, man. It's been a long day.
Yeah.
I'm glad to finally be here. I'm ready and excited for us.
Yeah, it's a good thing they can't see the clock at home, see what time we're actually starting this recording, but we're getting down to it. I know it's been a busy day.
Yeah, I'm coming straight from a full day of work. And, it's 11:30 at night. I just want you guys to know we're dedicated to giving this. We told you guys we were going to be giving you good information to help you with your fantasy season all season long, and we're doing it. We're here. I don't know if we're going to keep this up for 16 weeks, but we're going to try.
Right. Well, the big news right now is football is back. Fantasy season has started. We are through week 1. I have had an absolutely terrible week 1. You on the other hand, had a very interesting week, very exciting week 1.
Yeah, we definitely had some contrast there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, my teams underperformed projections by about 33%.
Yeah, that happens. For me, I'm not going into my 18th season playing fantasy football, and it always seems after you win a championship for whatever reason, your squad almost wants to come out and bomb week 1. But I've learned the hard way. Be patient. The first couple weeks, man, they're always crazy. Don't worry about your studs that you drafted that didn't perform in week 1. And I know you had Nick Chubb and Joe Mixon, and those. Man, that's tough.
Yeah, and we're going to get to those.
Yeah, for sure. But, hang tight. You'll be all right. You got a good squad.
Let them know how close, in particular, one of your games went. What was it? Half a point separated you win from loss?
Oh, we're going to do this now. Okay. So, this is a story. So, we run 2 leagues in tandem for those of you who don't know and aren't in our leagues. I'd be surprised because it's probably mostly going to be people in our leagues watching this. But hey, for those of you out there who don't, we run a redraft and a dynasty league in tandem. We have a 10-team league, and it's the same 10 players in both leagues. And so in my redraft league, I was done going into Monday night, and my opponent had Juju Smith-Schuster. I was up by about 21.9 points or so, something right about there. And then in my dynasty league, I have Juju Smith-Schuster, and my opponent had A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry going into that last game there. And so in that game, I was up by about 12 points going into that, with Juju Smith-Schuster played, but he still had Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown, right? And so I'm going into Monday night thinking, Juju's either going to blow up and I'm going to lose my redraft, but then have a wider margin for error in Dynasty, or Juju's going to do nothing. I'm going to be fine in redraft, but then I'm probably going to drop my first Dynasty game, right? And so it was one of those things where I'm probably just going to go 1-1. I was resigned to that going into Monday night. And then, holy crap, best case scenario. Juju Smith-Schuster shelling out for 21 points. He got the max that he could have gotten, and then I still end up winning in my redraft league. I ended up winning by 0.56 points.
That is a thin margin.
Yeah.
that you are hanging on every play happening in those games.
Yeah, a good friend of mine, Chris Vasquez, as well, is playing, and he's new to the league. For first year playing fantasy football, and he's got a powerful squad. And we were going into the game. We were watching it separately, but we were texting the entire time, and we were going into it. I'm like, man, that last drive, I did not want there to be enough time left for the Steelers to have to feel like they had to throw. I was hoping that they would just clock it out, right? And we're going into that, texting back and forth, like, oh man, I don't know if it's gonna. I think Juju's done. I don't think he's gonna. Man, it was so unbelievable. And those are the fantasy weeks that you live for, right? And then it ended up working out just as well with A.J. Brown kind of having a down week. Derrick Henry still put up a decent stat line. I think it was right about 15 points. And so that one ended up being super close too. I ended up winning that one by 6 points. So best case scenario for me, I got the max I could get out of Juju and still win my redraft. And it gave me just enough cushion to comfortably win in my dynasty league as well. 2 wins off the bat starting out. It's a good week 1.
Yeah, and Chris had a good week against me as well, because I also played him. And
Dynasty, yeah.
And I am kind of the dynasty target right now, because if you'll notice, this lovely trophy sitting right here. And why is it sitting on my side of the table? Because this is my trophy for winning last year's dynasty championship.
Yeah, you earned it, buddy. You earned it. You had a good season last year.
Well, that's why it's here in the studio. You get to come and visit it every week.
Yeah, you're lucky you didn't play me. I had to play for the third place game, and I dominated. I would. I think I had the league high that week as well in the finals.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, the big wins, the big losses this week. You're going to hear about some of those players that made those happen. But first, we're going to start off with some of the news, notes, and injuries from around the season. And starting off with a big one here, Marlon Mack, done for the year, Achilles.
Yeah, it's tough seeing him go on IR. I mean, it's great things for Jonathan Taylor, and it's really exciting for Nyheim Hines, right? I think we'll get to those a little bit more detail later. But anytime you see a player go down for the year or really to injury ever, it sucks, man.
Right. Well, for fantasy players, it opens up the possibility of 2 new rising stars.
Yeah, that's why you play the wire.
Yeah, with some openings coming up here. We also have Blake Jarwin also done for the year. This time going down with a torn ACL.
Yeah, he was praying for that big breakout season, the Blakeout season.
Yep.
And, Blake is now
out. We have Michael Thomas, high ankle sprain. That's a painful one. It intends to play through it.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one, man. High ankle sprains, those are no joke. I mean, you saw how badly it hampered Alvin Kamara last year, as well as Saquon Barkley. Thomas is claiming that he's planning on playing through it. I'd almost rather him sit out, man.
Yeah.
Just heal up, get back to 100%. His production is going to be highly limited. I mean, you saw it. You saw it in the Tampa Bay game. You were expecting a lot more than 3 points out of it. And, we'll get there too.
Yeah. Listed as probable, alongside George Kittle with a knee injury listed as questionable. And I love some of these designations sometimes as a fantasy player. They can be so aggravating going into a weekend when you have some of these injury designations, trying to figure out what's going through the heads of the coaching staff. And do you have to sit there 5 minutes before the game start on Sunday morning trying to figure out, can I leave him in the lineup? Or do I have to make the switch right now? And, I mean, how often have you made the wrong choice there?
I mean, it happens all the time. And what's worse is when it's like a 3 o'clock game or a Monday night game or something like that. Mike Evans was one of those issues going into this Sunday because he was a 3 o'clock game and nobody knew if he was going to play or what he would even look like if he was on the field. Those soft tissue injuries, man, those are hard. Those are hard to predict what the player's going to look like. And so those are always the tough situations. You got to be set yourself up on your roster to really be able to make moves if you need to.
Yep, we have another questionable here. Bell with a hamstring, likely to miss week 2, so start planning around that now.
Yeah, the thing about Bell, and actually I want to go back to Kittle a little bit on this as well. So we're recording on a Tuesday night, and so by the time you see this, you'll have a little bit more information about George Kittle and Lev Bell and what their situations look like. I believe Lev Bell is out for at least 3 weeks. I think they did put him on the temp IR. And so with Kittle, they're planning on seeing what his knee looks like on Wednesday when he comes into practice, and if he could go at all. He was reported to have some soreness in his knee today, so it's kind of a wait and see game with Kittle. We don't really know what his status is going to look like coming into the weekend yet, but we should get, as the week goes on, we'll get more and more information, and you can follow us on Twitter to get those updates as well.
Yep. We got another hamstring with Devontae Parker, something that's been affecting him for a while. And then David Njoku on the IR.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Devontae Parker was struggling with that hamstring injury all through training camp, and with David Njoku, he had this. He was brought in as a first-round draft pick originally, right? And he wanted to be the team's lead dog at the tight end position. They brought in Austin Cooper. You had Njoku come out and request a trade, and then they kind of talked him out of it. They clearly had a place for him in that offense, and then already done for the year. It's just, it's so close.
Yep. Last bit of news this week, not quite an injury, but about the same level. We got Parkey being signed by the Browns, and as the Shy Guys,
we had to bring it out.
Yeah, God, take him. Fine.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's get into some studs and duds for week 1. What we saw, what we liked, what didn't quite pan out exactly as we thought it should. Starting off with the studs, moving through some of the quarterbacks. Russell Wilson putting up 30.8 points in fantasy, 31 for 35, 322 yards, 4 touchdowns. I mean, this is what we kind of expect out of Russell Wilson. Same with Aaron Rodgers, also putting up over 30 points in fantasy, 32 for 44, 364 yards and 4 touchdowns. I mean, no real surprises with those two. You're kind of getting what you expect. And then we have Josh Allen putting up 28.2 points, 33 for 46, 312 yards and 2 touchdowns. And on top of that, 14 carries, 57 yards, and a touchdown all by his lonesome.
You need to sound more excited, man. You're a little blasé right now, man. You got to get excited about this. These are some top performances. Aaron Rodgers didn't look like this all last season. You know what I mean? He came out and he just shelled out. Now, as I mentioned in our mini series going over the offseason changes, I did think that the Minnesota defense got worse. I kind of felt like the Minnesota team as a whole got worse, and I didn't think they got that bad to allow that kind of a performance out of Aaron Rodgers. No, it is Aaron Rodgers, and so this is where it kind of gets tough. Now, what do you believe about Aaron Rodgers and this Packers offense, right? I did see Matt LaFleur kind of look a little bit more comfortable running his scheme. They didn't look like quite the same offense they've looked like over the last couple of years. They running plays quite a bit differently than what I'm used to seeing out of that offense. Aaron Rodgers looks completely in command, in control, and looks like he's on a mission. Do we think that the old Aaron Rodgers is back now, or is this kind of a blip against a bad defense? Personally, I'd like to see him string together a couple of these again before I buy back into it.
Sure.
But he was not this quarterback last year, and it's not like he got younger here, unless he visited some kind of companies I'm not aware of. But I mean, yeah, Devontae Adams all day long. Holy crap! Josh Allen did great. He's got to get that fumbling under control. Those 2 fumbles.
But even with that, 28.2 points,
and that's the kind of floor that this guy gives you with his rushing ability, man. I mean, 14 carries. Now, he wasn't supposed to run that much. They really dialed it back last year. I don't know what the scheme is and the plan is for him on that front going forward. I know he's not supposed to be taking off that much, especially bringing in Stephon Diggs. But they were kind of clicking in a as well as you're going to with Josh Allen and his kind of accuracy issues, right? And so it just kind of seemed to work, but it was against the Jets defense. So if they can continue that versus some good defenses, then I'm all in. I'm all in on this offense. I mean, this guy balled out. He's got one heck of a floor.
Yeah, definitely. All right, moving on to some of our running back studs this week. Josh Jacobs, 33.9 points. Now, I want to rewind for a second. As we said, Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers putting up 30.8. Josh Jacobs, 33.9 points in fantasy this week.
3 touchdowns will do that, man. Yeah, no. Quarterbacks are usually the highest scoring position in fantasy football. However, most leagues are single quarterback leagues. And so you don't really need to prioritize the position in quite the same way, especially because the quarterbacks are going to kind of cycle through which ones are the top performers of the week. You're going to see a myriad of different top 10 quarterback finishes throughout the year. And in fact, you're going to see probably over 20 quarterbacks throughout the course of the season be fantasy relevant, right? With running backs, it's kind of rare to see him quite that high. 3 touchdowns will do it, though. Now, he was a little inefficient on the ground, 25 rushes for only 93 yards. As far as an average goes, it's not great, but I am encouraged to see him handle that much volume. And the big thing is the 4 receptions on 6 targets. I don't think he saw 4 targets in any game last season. And so that's really where you wanted to see Josh Jacobs improve a little bit. Obviously, he's not going to get 3 touchdowns every game, but you wanted to see that baseline floor with the reception game to consider him a top-tier back. And I am in, buddy. I am super excited about this because he is my redraft running back.
So you definitely were happy this week.
Oh, yeah. I am in on Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, well, another name we're not surprised to see here, Christian McCaffrey. 26.9 points, 23 rushes for 96 yards with 2 touchdowns, and 3 of 4 receptions for 38 yards. Very good numbers.
Yeah, it's tough to stop McCaffrey, man. I mean, it was a little scary watching his numbers in the beginning of the game if you're one of those guys that tracks fantasy football points throughout the course of the game. But remember, games, they go in ebb and flows. And so the CMC is always going to put up a high total. And he's the number 1 pick for a reason, man.
Yep. Rounding out our running back studs, Ezekiel Elliott, 26.2 points, 22 for 96, and 1 touchdown, 3 receptions for 4 targets, 31 yards, and another touchdown.
Yeah, the only bright spot on that Dallas offense, they had a pretty poor outing against the Rams there. Aaron Donald was just wreaking havoc on Dak Prescott. He never looked comfortable back there. But Zeke was a bright spot. If you had Zeke, you're happy. Otherwise, look for the Cowboys to bounce back against Atlanta. I'm still in on this Cowboys offense.
Yeah, okay, good. All right, let's talk some wide receivers, and I want you to take this first one.
Devontae Adams.
Mm-hmm.
Damn it. 34.6 points. Just breaking my heart, man.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, not only did he go against me this week, but he's also a Packer. And so I have to be upset about this. I'm just on fundamental principles. 14 receptions on 17 targets, 156 yards, 2 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers had himself a day. And, Allen Lazard and MVS both shelled out as well here. And, if this Packers offense looks like this going forward, that's going to be freaking scary.
Absolutely.
I'm really hoping it doesn't.
We'll see. It's only week 1. Also in wide receivers, Calvin Ridley, 29.4 points, 9 of 12 for 130 and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, that garbage time over in Atlanta. I mean, Seattle was handily beating the Falcons pretty much the entire way, but Julio and Ridley were always going to get theirs, and Ridley's continuing to look like the red zone target there over in Atlanta. For some reason, Julio is just allergic to touchdowns. I don't get it. We'll get in a little bit more into Hayden Hurst and Russell Gage a little bit later.
Yeah, and I'm going to bring up Julio in a minute too. Rounding out our wide receivers, and speaking of garbage time, Adam Thielen, 26 points on only 6 catches of 8 targets for 110 yards. That's 6 receptions for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, contrary to his previous play style, he actually found himself behind the Green Bay secondary quite a few times, and just back there like a purple and yellow ninja, just appearing back there and getting some of those garbage time points out of Kirk Cousins. I mean, I want to say that the Packers had about 44 minutes of time of possession in this game. And so you really didn't have a lot of time for the Vikings to have any kind of fantasy production. And it was somewhat of a down week. They got a lot of garbage time points in this game. Most of the game through, they were not looking good. And, Thielen just putting up that monster performance. Man, I hate it. Thielen for fantasy football.
Right? Yeah.
He's man. I can never predict him. I can never predict Adam Thielen.
All right, tight ends. I have some thoughts on our dud tight ends this week. So why don't you give us the good news on tight ends this week, and I'll fill us in on some of the bad in a minute.
Yeah, for sure. Mark Andrews, Dallas Goedert, TJ Hawkinson, and Noah Fant all had great fantasy football finishes this week. Mark Andrews shelling out for 20.3 on 5 of 6 for 58 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's just a monster over there in Baltimore. Dallas Goedert, no, he was kind of fun because in our Dynasty League, I was a little bit torn on who to start for week 1. My options were Ian Thomas in Carolina. A little bit too early to start him, and he ended up not having a great day yet. I do think he's going to blow up eventually, but he's still kind of a wait-and-see player for me. Mike Gesicki was really the other guy that I was looking at. I really kind of wanted to trust him going into week 1. I ended up going with Goddard, and I'll tell you why. I saw who my opponent was starting, and that was Zach Ertz. And I thought, if I start Dallas Goedert opposite this guy, and Goddard just blows up on Zach Ertz, that's just going to dump all over this guy's face. And it ultimate bragging rights right there. And it ended up working out beautifully.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely beautifully. And yeah, Hawkinson and Fant, man, those were 2 former Iowa players that were both first-round picks, and they are ready to step up into the big time. They are ready for the big show. Hawkinson was making some incredible grabs, and that's going to be excellent. Noah, fantastic, man. He's going to be great.
All right, talking about some honorable mentions. Not quite the full-on studs, but having good weeks as well. And quarterbacks, we have Kyler Murray, 27.3. not bad.
Yeah, no, he's going to be dominant for fantasy for sure. Not every week on a consistent basis like these kind of numbers, but he's going to put these up from time to time.
Yeah,
sure.
definitely. Lamar Jackson with 26.5, kind of being a bit of a one-man army for part of the game this week, taking a few in himself.
I recuse myself from this conversation.
All right, we have Cam Newton, 25.7, running all over the place.
Yeah, I was really surprised that I really did think that they were going to not design run Cam so much. I expected him to run a little bit as typical, but I really thought that they were going to, at least in week one, give him some opportunities to really get some yardage from the pocket and let him kind of scramble out and make plays on his own. They were really scripting him all really run heavy. I think he only threw like 19 passes in this entire game. And he winds up, I think he ran 2 in, right? Man, Cam Newton, if he's back, this is going to be great for fantasy.
Yeah, I like watching him. I think he's fun to watch because he's versatile.
Yeah.
And that makes for exciting viewing.
It's just like Lamar. It's these wildcat quarterbacks that can play at the NFL level. It's hard to guard it correctly. And it's hard to even know what correctly is at this point.
Yeah, for sure. All right, and rounding out our honorable quarterback mentions, we have Matt Ryan and Mitchell Trubisky. And talk about winning in the last second, coming out to try and garbage time some points to save the game.
I mean, they outperformed Pat Mahomes in fantasy. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Right, which is that's gotta sting Mahomes owners a bit to see Trubisky higher.
Well, I'm both, and so for me, I guess it kind of works out.
Yeah,
but Trubisky, like I said, I think you can stream him through weeks 1 and 2. I do think you're playing with fire if you want to stream him over the Giants based on not just his performance in the first 3 quarters of the game, but the whole offense as a whole looked like it had trouble clicking together. A lot of people were really upset with Trubisky's first half performance. I happen to think that he did have some throws that I'm sure he's going to want back, but on the whole, I don't think it was all the struggles were not all on him from what I saw. I saw Jimmy Graham make 2 ridiculously, horrendously timed jumps at some pretty good balls. He just missed time the jumps, that's what he does.
Right.
That you had one job. But, we saw some other drops. Trubisky did overthrow Anthony Miller when he was wide open on a deep one. But, I mean, on the whole, I don't think that Trubisky played that horrendously. I just think that the offense as a whole was out of sync. We did see the running game open up a little bit, and then eventually he did get comfortable. And, when he turns it off and just leads the team doing what he needs to do, he's just a different player. And if he can just get to that at a consistent basis, I think he'll be fine.
Yeah. All right, our running back honorable mentions, Malcolm Brown, 24.5 points, 2 touchdowns. Comfortable. Nyheim Hines.
Sorry, going back to Malcolm Brown, he looked good, though. He looked really good. It was surprisingly so. Cam Akers looked like he's not ready yet. He had too much processing going on, not enough playing fast. Mm-hmm. Malcolm Brown making moves, powering over people, showing some good bursts. Now, he doesn't have insane top-end speed or anything like that, but he straight up looked good. And, man, this Rams backfield is going to be so hard to break. It's hard to trust Malcolm Brown moving forward, but it's hard not to want to try. And so this is going to be really interesting to see how the next few weeks play out for him.
Sure. Okay, Nyheim Hines, who we mentioned at the start of the show, and we're going to be mentioning again in a few minutes.
Yeah, where do we talk about him? Are we talking about him now or later?
Why don't you bring him up now, and then we'll make another note about him later when we talk about some waiver pickups.
Sure. I mean, with Marlon Mack going down, this is kind of a game changer. Now, everyone knows Philip Rivers loves to throw to the running back position, right? He loves to check it down, and that was always going to happen. In the game you saw him doing that. Marlon Mack looked good in that aspect. Jonathan Taylor obviously had 6 catches for like 60-something yards. Nyheim Hines, that's obviously his game. And so it was there was a curiosity question about Nyheim Hines and how much production he was really going to get. Now, I think that Jonathan Taylor actually is very capable as a receiving back. So I was skeptical on Nyheim Hines going into the season and how much production he was going to get. Surprisingly, though, before Marlon Mack even went down, Hines was getting almost all the playing time over Jonathan Taylor. I don't think Jonathan Taylor got even a touch until almost the end of the first half. And Nyheim Hines was coming out on like fourth down and goal line carries and stuff like that. It was weird. Mm-hmm. And so with Marlon Mack now down, it just completely changes the landscape. Not only was Nyheim Hines already getting more work than most of us actually really expected, but now with Marlon Mack down, he really legitimately really has a shot at being the next Austin Eckler in this offense. And he straight up looked good on Sunday. He was running hard. I was really, really impressed with the play of Nyheim Hines on top of the fact that he's getting a ton of opportunity now. With Phillip Rivers as his quarterback, I think this is a perfect scenario for Nyheim Hines. He's a huge target, I think.
Yeah. And another person that you like as a target, Raheem Mostert, who long run catch find himself with 23.1. Why don't you, why are you keeping an eye specifically?
So Raheem Mostert was kind of this guy that he's got that top 15 upside ability on especially on any given week, right? He's got top 10 performance upside on any given week. The problem is his floor in San Francisco with that four-headed committee back there. Shanahan really likes to mix it up with his running backs. I don't know that you could count on Raheem Mostert for more than like 15 touches a week. Now, he did have more than 15 touches this week. But we're going to actually break that down a little bit later in a following segment. And the thing about Raheem Mostert is that I still don't know that you can trust the overall volume, but he does have that top end speed on that play that he took, that catch that really made his fantasy day was a reception he took for 76 yards to the house. And on that play, I want to say he got up to like 22.7 miles per hour. Wow. The dude was just jetting. Yeah, nobody could catch him. And he has that. And so I still have him in like the David Montgomery tier, where at any given time they can blow up and give you a great week, but they don't have the relative safe floor that a lot of these top options have. Now, as far as that safe floor goes, though, tell me how that floor did you with Nick Chubb and Joe Mixon. So, I mean...
We're going to get to the duds in a minute.
That's why in fantasy football I preach, take the shot on the players that you like. Because when they do have a down week, you're going to be a lot more forgiving. Don't reach on players that you really don't want, because then you're just going to get really annoyed with them and be a little bit more impatient with them than you necessarily should be. You know.
All right, to round out our running back honorable mentions, we have a trio here of Chris Carson, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, finishing with 21 and change points. All very solid running back to have.
Yeah, if you had these guys, you were happy. No, I think with Alvin Kamara, you kind of breathed a sigh of relief a little bit, especially with those touch totals and yardage totals. But those two touchdowns really saved him. But yeah, I mean, lots of guys had huge weeks this week. We can't put everybody into these segments, but here are just a few guys that we picked and chose from. There's just so much to choose from. Why don't we just go right into the receivers?
Yeah, it's tricky. So yeah, we'll get on to our wide receiver honorable mentions. With a solid debut in Arizona, DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, that everyone was totally concerned about his target volume, and he's singing to the rafters. He's not going to get the kind of target share totals he got in Houston. No, he got more.
Yeah.
He had I think like a 44% target share in that game, maybe 40%.
Yeah, coming 14 for 16 for 151.
Yeah, no touchdowns, I don't think, but man, so much for these volume concerns.
Right.
Jesus.
Well, and what we can touch on there that I'm going to say the same about Julio Jones is you can look at some of these guys that, it's not touchdowns. Yes, they look big on paper, but someone who's getting the targets, especially in a PPR league, and who's getting the yards, that's going to rack up a ton more points than you may even give it credit for as a younger fantasy football player. You're going to look for the touchdowns because those are exciting, but look at look at some of these point totals that are coming out of guys who didn't come out with a touchdown this week. That's going to be your consistency. These guys that are moving balls downfield, that's going to rack up.
Yeah, because I mean, you're not going to score multiple touchdowns every game, man.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen a running back with 32 touchdowns.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have your ebbs and flows, and so that's why, like Alvin Kamara, that performance, though great, was a little scary. However, with Julio and DeAndre, those are the floors that you're looking for, because no matter what, they're going to have high target volumes, they're going to have high yardage volumes, and if they happen to get a touchdown or two, they're going to straight up when you're weak, but they're almost never going to hurt you. And so that's what we're really looking for, that volume floor is all about. Past that, you had Darius Slayton and Juju Smith-Schuster shelling out on Monday Night Football, and then Jamison Crowder and Robbie Anderson is having solid performances over the weekend. That these speedsters, that's what they give you. That one big play, that's all you need. That one big play, taking it to the house. That'll change your fantasy week in a heartbeat.
Yeah, most definitely. All right, our tight end honorable mentions, starting us off with Kelsey with 14 points. We have Njoku with 12.5, but now out. And Logan Thomas. You want to tell us about your thoughts on Logan Thomas here?
Yeah, so I'm intrigued by him. So, I think they had Jeremy Sprinkle as a tight end last year, and then they brought in Thaddeus Moss as an undrafted free agent, who I was really high on. I think he's got some injury thing going on, I think. I want to say that he's on like injured reserve or something like that. I know the team did at some point release him too. He's got something going on. I got to look more into that. But Logan Thomas being brought in here, they're rolling with him as a starter, and he looked good. He looked fine. He's a big target. He's athletic. He had only 4 receptions for 37 yards, but didn't manage to get the score, which is what you're looking at for the tight ends, right? And then 8 targets. 8 targets is what I'm encouraged about, because looking at this offense, they were really struggling to get the running game going. Antonio Gibson did not get as much volume as a lot of us were hoping for. Peyton Barber was completely inefficient, on the ground, with the exception of those 2 goal line carries that he fell into the end zone for. Terry McLaurin is really their only huge weapon at the moment that's producing, and so they're looking for somebody else to step up. And Logan Thomas, he looks like he might be it, and so we'll see. At least for now, someone to keep your eye on.
All right. Well, that'll do it for our honorable mentions, and now the section of our show, the duds, that I have a lot of thoughts on, because I have about 8 players that show up on our list of duds. Because I had that kind of a week.
You can see how excited he is. Maybe that's why he's not happy about this show.
Right, exactly. Well, starting off with quarterbacks, Fitz no magic, 7.4. 7.4.
Yeah, 0 touchdowns and 3 interceptions will do that to you.
Yeah.
I mean, with Fitzpatrick, this is who he is. Every time you think he's going to do well is when he bombs. Every time you're like not expecting anything from him, well, that's when he's going to blow up. Never trust this guy in fantasy, man.
Yeah,
just don't do it.
And same too. We have Tyrod, not a streamer choice. If 9 points is gonna be it.
Yeah, no, he was being looked at as because he's got a really easy first 8 games of the schedule. I mean, you want to ride somebody for the beginning of the season. Tyrod was supposed to be the guy. 9 points ain't gonna get it done.
No, not at all. Baker. I have him.
About Baker.
I'm only lucky that where I have him in redraft is that he's my backup. So at least he was on my bench, but he's also on my dynasty team, and we run 2 quarterbacks in our dynasty. So I had him alongside Drew Brees, and the combination of the 2 made for
like
84 points
total.
Yeah, 84 point game combined from my teams. Yeah, that was rough.
84 total points.
Yeah, 84 total points combined from my team. And these 2 definitely didn't help, but Baker in particular. 10.9 points.
Yeah, he was running for his life back there. I saw no difference from last year to this year. It was crazy. I mean, Odell looks slightly healthier, but he looked odd out there. Yeah, it was an odd game for him. The 10 targets was encouraging for him though. But man, that line did not seem to do any better for Baker, and that was really the concern. Is can he get comfortable back there? And so far, the answer is a hard no. I mean, this was the Ravens though,
right?
So I think next week will be a perfect indication. It's a perfect second week matchup for us to know really early what do we do with Baker.
Yeah, I was disappointed, but he's still on the roster. We'll give him a chance.
You're not going to drop him. You're not dropping him yet.
Not dropping him yet. We got Haskins, Darnold, Golf, with less than 13 points.
Gee, who saw that coming?
Right, exactly. Moving on to our running back duds. Why don't you give us one here?
Yeah, so I'm going to start off with Mark Ingram here. 2.9 points on 10 rushes for 29 yards. That's it.
That's it.
That's it. There's no more here.
Yeah.
Stop looking at me. Don't expect more. There's nothing else here.
That's it.
That's it.
That's all there is to say. Well, I could say a lot, but I'll try and keep this brief on the next one. Nick Chubb, someone who I've put my faith in the past and let me down this week. Just not a pretty week. Not a pretty week for Nick Chubb.
Yeah, not what you're looking at all for these two guys.
No. We've got Le'Veon Bell with 5.6, but left with an injury, so we'll give him a little pass, and instead we'll throw another one of my players here, Joe Mixon, with 5.6.
Yeah, just got pooped out by his offensive line. He had nowhere to go.
Yep.
Oh man, that was unpleasant to watch. I'm not gonna lie, that was very unpleasant to watch.
I just kept checking in on the app, checking my scores, and waiting for that Joe Mixon number to start coming up.
Yeah, I'm encouraged by how much they were trying to use him, at least early, but man, he had nowhere to go, and this was really my fear with him because last year started out very, very similar to this, except they looked like they just didn't want to use him at all. But you saw him when he did get used, he had nowhere to go, and man, I'm hoping we do not have a repeat of the first half of last year.
Me too.
I'm so ready for this guy just to break out and stay there. Come on.
I'm right there with you. Okay, talking about some wide receivers. Brandon Cooks, 3 points.
Yeah, he put up a stinker on Thursday. He was going into the game questionable to play to begin with, but yeah, you want to see more production from him than that.
20 yards ain't gonna cut it.
Texans just got spanked.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael Thomas, 3.2 points.
Breaking my heart.
Yeah.
I ended up getting him with the 7th pick overall in our redraft league. I don't know how, so when I saw him there, I had to take him. And then he puts up a 3.2 week on me. Come on, man. This is why I don't take receivers in the first round.
Yeah, and you and I, before the season officially kicked off, we're talking trade there. And I'm kind of feeling glad I forgot about that one for a bit and didn't go through with it. Then again, you know what? It didn't seem to matter this week anyway. It probably would have been fine if I would have just threw him in there because if I'm gonna lose
just
big.
Roll with it.
Just lose big. This one's another disappointing one to see. OBJ, 3.7, going 3 for 10, 22 yards.
Yeah, and those were, some of them were flat out balls that he should have caught. Some of them were just uncatchable. That whole Cleveland offense outside of the running, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt actually looked good themselves. The line didn't look good. The Baker looks really bad. Odell just wasn't getting it done for whatever the reason was. I know Landry was a little bit hampered by an injury, but I did see him out there. He did get a couple targets. Austin Hooper not really doing much. And that whole offense, man, that was tough sledding. But how much of it is them and how much is Baltimore? I gotta think that either way, you still gotta play better than that. Yeah, I don't care. They had a chance to execute and they weren't executing. So
yeah, definitely.
I'm gonna go with that.
All right, and to round us out with some wide receivers, we have Keenan Allen, 5.7. You have Mike Evans, 6.7. And
Cooper.
yeah, I tried to skip past. And Cooper Kupp.
Don't forget about Cooper.
6 points. That frustration you're hearing is, yes, that's another one of my players. Another player I put some faith in that we're talking about in this week's studs. You know what?
It's like somebody saw that coming and tried to tell you.
Yeah. You know what? Well, you know what? It's week 1, and with week 1, you play with last season's faith. You play with what happened last season, and this is sitting here on my side of the table.
Dance with the one who brought you. Is that what that is?
Well, it's a combination of all the names we're now seeing down here in red.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I don't think Cooper's going to be here every week, but with that whole 12 personnel thing, Bobby Woods versus Cooper Kupp, this is exactly why I leaned Bobby Woods going into the season. I do expect more of these than you would like from Cooper Kupp or I think Bobby Woods has that good floor.
Yeah.
And then just finishing this out, AJ Brown with Cooper on Monday Night Football, getting me the win in Dynasty in Week 1. Suck it, quarter posse.
Yeah, see, there's a name you're happy to see in this section. Tight ends real quick. We've got the Gronk with only 2.1.
The Gronk.
I have a sad face drawn in my notes here next to Austin Hooper. Again, another one. Alongside Evan Ingram, both having very down weeks.
Wow, did he look bad. But then he made some... He had 2 catches on 7 targets, and on the 5 that he missed, he looked terrible. But on the 2 that he caught, if I remember correctly, and at least one of them was gosh darn super impressive. He went up, grabbed that at a weird angle. Man, it was good. What the heck is going on? Maybe just Week 1 jitters. Maybe don't overreact to anything you see in Week 1. Weird stuff happens.
Mm-hmm. And then. Would have liked to see more, not as bad as some of the other names we just mentioned, but like to see more out of Hayden Hurst, George Kittle, and another name I have circled here, Darren Waller, who's another one of not bad. I wasn't upset there.
Yeah, with the capital that it took to get Kittle and Waller, you would have liked to see at least double digits, right? But I mean, Kittle did go down. I don't think he had any production in the second half because of that knee sprain that he suffered. He did come back in and finish the game, but obviously he was probably hampered, right? With the lack of weapons that they have in the receiving game, they would have used Kittle, I'm sure, if they could, which concerns me a little bit about his knee moving forward, at least in the immediate future. Darren Waller, this was kind of the concern. A lot of mouths to feed. They were really hyper-targeting Henry Ruggs. Ryan Edwards, surprisingly, didn't get any looks, really. I think he got like 1 target. And they had a lot of buzz coming out of camp. I was really surprised to see they didn't even really try to use him. Hunter Renfrow did get some targets. With Tyrell Williams out now, that's kind of what we expected because Henry Ruggs was getting the work in the slot in training camp. Once Tyrell Williams went out, it just makes sense that you're going to use Ruggs on the outside now and bring in Hunter Renfrow a lot more. So, just a plethora of options here, and it's Derek Carr, not Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
So... with Hayden Hurst, I think that I'm a little disappointed in his Week 1. I have Hayden Hurst as someone I'm really looking to break out this season, and really would have liked to see that out the gate. I think with Russell Gage, you're going to see some alternating. I think we're seeing more out of Russell Gage than I was anticipating. I think that they are going to go a little bit back and forth in matchup base now, a little bit more than I would have liked. I think Hayden Hurst, I would have liked to see him just really take on that third in-line role. I think it's just going to go back and forth because you got to remember Hurst did have Jamal Adams, in that Seahawks defense, and Jamal Adams is a monster. So, yeah, we'll see what it looks like going forward. I was hoping to see a little bit more of a boom.
Absolutely. Well, that'll do it for your Week 1 studs and duds. But we do have Week 2 to look forward to, and to that we go to the wire and discuss some waiver wire pickups for Week 2 moving forward. Some of the guys you should be keeping an eye out for their availability. Let's, again, start off with the quarterbacks. We've got several here that are streaming contenders. Joe Burrow against Cleveland. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, this is a tough week for streaming quarterbacks. A lot of the matchups that you would like to target are in like those top 6, 8 quarterback. So it's going to be a tough week for streaming. Joe Burrow is someone that I drafted knowing I'm not going to play him week 1. I expected him to do okay, which would have given me the confidence to play him against Cleveland. He did not do okay. He did very, very bad. Bad Joe. And so, moving, I don't know, it's like midnight. I'm tired. Playing against this Cleveland team, you do have Myles Garrett, you do have Denzel Ward, you do have talent here. Now, they didn't look great last week, but they are at home this week. They don't have the hometown crowd, but you still have a certain swagger about you when you're on your home turf. You have that extra motivation to defend your home, and that's a real thing in football, And so I think Cleveland has a real shot to play better this week, but
I'm hoping so.
There's some other streamers that I like a little bit better. These two guys that you want to talk about, man. I'm just worried about trusting them if I don't have to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's talk about some of the other maybe better streaming choices here. We got Goff at Philly, Jimmy G against the Jets.
Yeah, so Jimmy G against the Jets, that one's not, because it's a soft matchup, right? Now the problem with Jimmy G, right, is the fact that it's obviously one, a run-based heavy team, and then two, his wide receiver core is like non-existent. It's going to be with George Kittle being injured, and then just the plethora of injuries they have there, and then for some reason the unwillingness to use Dante Pettis whatsoever on that team. It's going to be tough sledding, but I think that Jimmy G is kind of a technician who's going to manage the offense. He's not going to blow up and just dominate a game, but he's going to dink and dunk it. He's going to move the chains. He can throw a decent deep ball. And so against this porous Jets defense, I like him moving the chains, keeping that time of possession, especially with the running game. And so, I do think Jimmy G has a pretty decent fantasy floor here. Goff against Philly. Now, this is, Philly, it looked horrendous in week 1 in Washington, but again, week 1, stuff happens. It's kind of hard to pick and choose what you believe in. Perennially, Philly typically has a pretty solid defense, and there's not a lot of reason to believe that this defense won't bounce back. Goff is terrible against good defenses. And so, with him having a down week last week, the offensive line actually looked a little bit better to me in LA. The weapons there, Bobby Woods, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, he's got weapons to use. I think Gerald Everett went down with an injury. I don't know the status of that off the top of my head. We'll find more about that as the week goes on. But Goff is just King Goff. He needs to earn his freaking crown, man. That's just the bottom line. I am not in on streaming Goff until he goes back to doing what he did 2 years ago.
Yeah.
How about that?
There are other options. There is maybe Gardner Minshew.
You got Gardner against Tennessee, yeah.
Yeah. Or you've got Mitch.
Yeah, Mitch and Tannehill. That's okay. So if I'm going to pick one guy here, it's going to be Gardner Minshew against Tennessee. I am all over the mustache magic man. Magic mustache man. How are we going to say that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Something
like that.
But you've got some options. You've got some options in quarterback for streamers.
Yeah, I mean, this guy went 19 for 20 against the Indianapolis Colts team, and he's got some heck of targets there. Mitch against the Giants, I think you're playing with fire there, but he can get it done. It is a soft matchup, and he is at home. I think that you're rolling the dice a little bit, but if you're in any kind of quarterback wasteland, these four are really the guys that I would target. Jimmy G, Gardner Minshew, Mitch if you have to against New York, and Tannehill against Jacksonville I think will be okay too. I think Tannehill will give you a solid floor. I don't think he's going to throw the ball 42 times again in this game, at least Tennessee hopes not, but he's got the weapons to use between AJ Brown, Corey Davis had a decent game. We'll see if that was just a flash in the pan. Jonnu Smith is great though, and so you do have stuff there to use. For sure. Yeah.
Talking about some running backs, we'll list a couple names for you real quick. Nyheim Hines, we talked about.
He's a great waiver wire ad. I think he's going to have that real strong shot at being the next Austin Eckler this season, and that he'll be good for your fantasy roster all season long. I'm definitely all over him in a redraft league for sure.
Yeah. Malcolm Brown.
you gotta start somebody.
Yeah.
You gotta bet on somebody at some point. And in that backfield, Malcolm Brown certainly looks like the piece to bet on, at least for right now. Now, if he comes out for like, 12 carries for 36 yards, no TDs, and Cam Akers comes out and puts up over 70, then what are you going to do with him?
Right.
That's kind of one of the reasons why I like Malcolm Brown as an ad this week, but I'm tempering. We run a fab system, so if you're on the number one, if you have the number one priority, I would probably try to scoop up like the Naeem Hines or we'll get to some of the receivers later, but Malcolm Brown I probably wouldn't burn that waiver priority on. Or a ton of fab, because there is the realistic possibility that you could be dumping him in the next few weeks, right? So we'll see. But right now, he does look like the guy to take your bet on.
Yep. Some other options at running back. We have James Robinson, Joshua Kelly.
Yeah, I mean, if James Robinson's still available, a lot of people were picking him up going into week one because of the whole Leonard Fournette mess, and they did make it pretty clear that it was going to be James Robinson starting out. So Joshua Kelly looking like absolutely the handcuff to own in LA. Yeah.
One I want to bring up here, Peyton Barber. Now, looking at 17, 29 yards, 2 touchdowns. Is it flat? We talking flash in the pan here, or is this? I mean, is
it really even a flash? I think it's kind of like a sparkle.
You think so?
What was it? 29 total yards?
29 total yards, with 2 touchdowns.
You can't rely on that, man.
Well, but
he's going to get the goal line work.
That's what I'm wondering.
But how much do you expect Washington to move the ball?
Well, that's a tricky proposition.
The point that you have going in your favor is that their defense is not abysmal. Mm-hmm. They were quite a bit unhealthy last year, but they did have a lot of key pieces in place. I think that we're going to see a completely different defense out of this team this year, especially adding Chase Young, who's just a freak of nature. Maybe their offense gets some more better field position, starting out for the offense, a little bit more time of possession type of stuff, more chances, right? But no, Peyton Barber is not the piece that I want here. To be honest with you, if you're in a deep league and you're really struggling at running back, if you're a Lev Bell owner and you're like scrambling to pick up somebody, if you're in a deeper league, yeah, sure, you can roll with Peyton Barber and hope that he falls into the end zone again. Personally, I'm going to wait until either Gibson or Love hit, right? Obviously, Love's the odd man out at the moment. He didn't even suit up on Sunday, but I'm still holding on a little bit of hope from him because I didn't see anybody that distinguished himself in the Washington backfield yet. And so Gibson and Love have the talent to showcase. And so I'm going to wait for whichever one of them gets there first. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to go after that Washington backfield. But for right now, I think Peyton Barber's a lesser version of a poor man's version of Malcolm Brown.
Sure. And I brought up Peyton Barber specifically for fantasy players that are going to see, well, look at how much the projection was beat by. Maybe I should go and pick him up. And, well, you got to see where those points came from. And is that reliable points? Or was that just happened to be a star week? So something to consider when you're looking at some of these waiver wire pickups is how did they get their points and can you count on those points?
Yeah, look at the volume. Volume is a great indicator.
Mm-hmm. Now, someone you like, Josh Adams.
Yeah, Josh Adams is. I like him as a player. I liked him in Philly too, actually. Ordinarily he would be I'd be all over Josh Adams and definitely want to give him a shot just to see what happens. Just because I like him as a player, but with Bell only out for seemingly about 3 weeks, a minimum of 3 weeks, but I don't think it's projected to be much more than that with the type of injury he sustained. And then the matchups for the Jets over the next few weeks are not great, starting with San Francisco this upcoming week. So what's the point? Even if he hits, I think he's going to have a limited ceiling. And so it's, I'm looking elsewhere. I'm glad that he's getting an opportunity, and let's see what he does with it. I'm going to keep one eye out for him, but he's not a guy I'm putting my money on. And then past that, the only other one to really talk about is from Monday night, Benny Snell. If the poor James Conner owner didn't ensure James Conner in the draft,
Mm-hmm.
go grab Benny Snell because this is a guy that needs to be rostered in all formats anyway.
Mm-hmm.
If James Conner misses any length of time for certain, plug and play Benny Snell. No problem. Don't even have to think about it.
Yep. All right, a quick note on a couple of wide receivers. We've got Robbie Anderson.
Yeah, I really like. There's two receivers I really like going into this week, and that would be Robbie Anderson and Paris Campbell. Those are my two favorite targets for the week. That's who I have most of my fab money bet on or bid on, and Robbie Anderson, he's got the talent. He's got the talent, and it looks like he might actually get the playing time. He got more snaps than Curtis Samuel, and that's what I was waiting to see. I wanted to see, was he going to be the odd man out after Curtis Samuel, or was he going to get that starting role opposite DJ Moore? And then Paris Campbell, his role's pretty secure.
Yeah.
And so we saw what we need to see. He's the next T.Y. Hilton, and I think he's going to be better than T.Y. Hilton this year.
Yeah. There's one I want to talk about. MVS. He's maybe worth a stash, but I mean, the numbers were good. 17.6 points, 4 for 6, 96 yards and a touchdown. Week 2 at Lions. That maybe?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, I don't think that you're going to get production out of Adams, Lazard, and MVS all together on a weekly basis. I don't think that you can count on that. And so for me, it's kind of a take your pick between MVS and Lazard. I was in the Lazard camp all through the offseason and going into week 1, and I think that I'm still there. I know that MVS had 30 more yards and a couple more targets. They both caught a touchdown pass, and so I still put my chips on Lazard. I just like Lazard better from the squad. I can't even put a reason to it yet. I just watching them. I think MVS is that kind of boom bust kind of receiver, whereas Lazard's going to get the constant production, and I don't like the boom bust receivers necessarily. Now, if my squad's not kind of built for that, then sure, but I like the guys that I can count on.
Yeah. Anyone else in the wide receiver potentials you want to bring up?
I mean, Russell Gage looks like he's going to be a thing. Like I was alluding to before, I think it's going to be kind of matchup based between him and Hayden Hurst on who's going to have the bigger performance. I think you're going to see Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones on a consistent basis be able to perform, and then it's going to be either Gage or Hurst is going to have a really solid performance. But I don't think that you're necessarily going to see all 4 of them at any given point in time.
Sure. All right, let's talk real quick some tight end streaming possibilities. We've got Logan Thomas. We've got Jimmy Graham. Because, sure, why not?
What the hell?
Austin Hooper against Cincy. Could be a good play this week. Could be.
So going through those 3, Jimmy Graham clearly going to get the targets in Chicago, especially by the red zone, and that's what you're really looking for. So as long as he stays healthy, once he starts getting banged up, I think I would start to lean away from him. But until then, in these softer matchups where you could see the Bears putting up at least a few points, yeah, I would say that you could probably roll with Jimmy Graham as a streamer. Logan Thomas is someone that I'm not looking to stream necessarily this week, but it's someone that I'm absolutely keeping my eye on. So if you have a tight end that you're good starting this week, but you're not sold on as a season-long starter, maybe grab Logan Thomas for a stash and just kind of see what he does over the next couple of weeks. Grab him early while he's cheap, because if he blows up, then he's going to be harder to get, right? And then Austin Hooper. Now I think you can play your Austin Hooper going against Cincy this week. I think that this would be a perfect matchup to use him in. But that's who I think he's going to be on this Cleveland offense. I think he's going to be more matchup based than a steady every. He's talented enough to get it done every week, but in this offense, on this system, with this situation that he's in, I just don't think that you want to roll with him every single week. Then you got Jonnu against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jonnu, who I like.
Mm-hmm.
He had a decent game. He came up with a touchdown on Monday night. I think Jacksonville's a fine matchup for him. And then my dark horse. I'm all over Ian Thomas. I know that he didn't blow up yet. The breakout's coming. The breakout's coming for Ian Thomas. I really like Ian Thomas on this squad. I really like him with Teddy Bridgewater. I think it's only a matter of time. And once it happens, there's no going back.
Mm-hmm.
So keep an eye out for it. I think it's possible that he comes up with a very solid game here against Tampa Bay.
Yep. Alrighty, so those are our suggestions for some of the guys to look for on the waiver wire. Now, we also have a segment we like to call the Hold Your Horses segment. Some players we want to talk about that whatever you're thinking of doing, whatever you're thinking of doing, maybe just don't do it. Maybe don't try and buy big right now. Maybe don't try and sell yourself short. You've got a few. I've got one. Why don't you give me one of yours?
Sure. I'm going to start with Raheem Mostert.
Okay.
We talked about Mostert. I mean, I like him as a player, but I'm not particularly high on him. Like I said, I still have him right around that in that same tier as David Montgomery because, sure, he shelled out for 23.1 points. And by the way, this is a perfect time to bring it up as we haven't addressed this yet. All of our points totals that we give you, all of our analysis, all these numbers, they're all for half-point PPR leagues.
Yes.
We default to half-point. We use half-point in our leagues, but, but between the three formats, half point just seems to be what is best to use for analytics because it's a really good median.
Yeah.
And so 23.1 points in a half point PPR setup. If you break this down though, 15 rushes for 56 yards. That stat worries me. That stat straight up bothers me. That's what 3.7 carry, right? Not impressive numbers,
No.
And that's not what I'm looking for from him, especially in that matchup. I mean, the Cardinals defense played well that day, but I mean, if Most is going to run all over anybody, it should have been this team, right? And he kind of did on one play, right? And he had that one reception for 76 yards, and he took it to the house, just speeding past everybody, and that's kind of what he gives you, right? That's kind of the thing about Mostert. And so you can kind of expect that from him at least a little bit, right? But I have a hard time banking on that because outside of that one 76-yard pass that he took to the house, he only had 3 catches for 19 yards. And so I don't like banking on low volume total.
Mm-hmm.
I don't low volume, low efficiency. That's not what I like to bank on. And so and he's not a receiver that like I can expect like a Darius Slayton, where that's what you're hoping for. I mean, man, I don't know. But then it's tough because you look at his next few matchups though, because he's playing against the Jets, the Giants, Philly, which is a pretty okay defense, but then he's got the Dolphins, and so it's like Mostert's kind of that weird one. If you were lucky enough to where you didn't have to reach for him and he fell to you, ride him out. You can ride him out during this period, kind of see where he's at. You're in a good position to do so, where it shouldn't really hurt you to find out. So he's kind of one of those guys where I'm like, don't get too excited about him yet. Don't be doing your victory laps quite yet, But we'll see. We'll see where he goes from here. Just I want to see those efficiency metrics come up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. One I want to bring up real quick, Chase Edmonds. Okay, don't get too excited. I don't think what you saw is going to be an every week kind of thing. You still have Kenyon Drake sitting on top. I mean, I know I looked and I saw the points from this week and thought, this looks good. No, wait, hang on a minute. Don't let this fool you. Don't get ahead of yourself.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Kenyon Drake's not going to be a 30-touch guy, right? 30-touch a game guy. Chase Edmonds is going to get some work.
Yeah.
And
you're gonna be. I think you're gonna be disappointed if you try and bank a little too hard here.
Yeah, I mean, he's not someone you're trying to start yet,
right?
For sure. So yeah, I mean, 11 points, I could see how that'd be tempting to put into a flex or something like that. But and I think that's right about where he's at. I mean, yeah. I would expect him to put up either 60 yards or a touchdown in most weeks.
Yeah.
As the backup to Kenyon Drake. But he's not the guy that this is not an RBBC here. He's just going to spell Drake. And so what you're really doing is with Chase Edmonds, he's a home run hit if Kenyon Drake goes down. He's that kind of league winner. If Kenyon Drake goes down, you all of a sudden have yourself like a top 5 guy. He's a stash and kind of hold and hope for the best. Or he's the handcuff to Kenyon Drake if you have Kenyon Drake, right? And so that he's a role kind of guy in fantasy football. His role is not in the starting lineup unless the lead back goes down. For sure.
All right. Can you give me one more? Or I know you got a few more.
I got a few more. So let's run through these real quick.
All right, go ahead.
So I'm going to give you Chris Carson right here. I'm going to say pump the brakes on this guy because, look, it's easy to talk about the fact that he only had 6 attempts on the ground and then, the 6 targets for a total of 12 touches in a backfield where they're going to rotate through. Carlos Hyde actually looked, in my opinion, like he had more burst than Chris Carson did in that game. A lot of people I heard a lot of experts talking about how Chris Carson looked fine. He looked okay. He looked okay coming back from the injury. He didn't to me. He looked slow. He looked hesitant. He looked like he was focusing more on his balance and maintaining his body control than he was about playing hard, running through players like I see him do, making those hard cuts. He didn't run the way I usually watch him run. And so, and that's kind of what I wanted to see going into week 1 from that injury last year. I wanted to see just what he looked like from a mental perspective running the ball and from a physical perspective on those hips and those cuts and things like that. And it didn't look like he had much burst to me. And outside of those 2 touchdowns that he got on the back of an easy pitch and catch, his production floor was nothing. It was worse than Mostert's. And so you want to talk about a high output over 20 points. I wouldn't be trying to trade for this guy yet. You know what I'm saying? I'm not attacking this guy with it saying, okay, yeah, no, he's a real deal. I mean, if you drafted him, you're probably going to start him.
Sure.
Right? But if I could move him for like a key piece, I'm all about it. Like if somebody offers me Jonathan Taylor for Chris Carson, that's not even... I might pull the trigger too quickly, and they might rescind that offer. You know what I'm saying?
Are you trying to fish for me to make that deal to you?
No, I don't have Chris Carson. Coming up next is Jamison Crowder with the San Francisco, Indianapolis, and Denver matchups coming up. I understand that he is very obviously the only show in town in New York, and look, man, I'm not buying into Darnold. I'm not buying into Adam Gase's offense. Bell is down now. Frank Gore and Josh Adams are going to get some work, but how much are they going to put up against the San Francisco, Indianapolis, and Denver defenses, He gets a little break against Arizona, but then after that he goes against the Chargers and Buffalo. So it's like, with Jamison Crowder, I understand that you drafted him more for his floor than his ceiling. And that's what he should be. Stick to that kind of flex mentality with him. Don't think that he's automatically a wide receiver 2 now with that massive blow-up game. I realize that it was against Buffalo, but that was off the back of a monster touchdown catch. He ran, gosh, I don't even want to give a number out, but I know it was a long play. It was one of those long touchdown plays that gives you like 12, 13 points off just that one play. And so it's this offense. I'm not buying into this offense. And then the last one I want to give you is OBJ. Hold your horses on OBJ. I'm going to flip it a little bit here. I gave you some guys that had some monster production that don't get too excited about. I'm going to flip it here and say, don't fire sell on OBJ just yet. Odell didn't look great in week 1 against Baltimore. Any fool can see that. And Baker obviously is scary to trust at this point. However, Beckham did get 10 targets. That's a huge share for someone of his talent. And with the draft capital that you invested to get him, you can't just drop him. Right? And so what are your options? Well, if you want him off your team, you have to trade him. Who are you going to trade him for? What are you going to get for him right now? It's week 1. Don't overreact. Hold off a little bit. Let's see how he does in some of these softer matchups. Let's see if Baker can stabilize out. If Baker can find a rhythm at all, it should mean big things for Odell Beckham Jr. So this guy's just too crazy talented. I understand that he's a bit of a antics head case type of thing. The guy's a weird dude and he does some weird things on and off the field. But the fact is this guy makes plays that nobody else in the NFL can make. And so if you have some stable receivers that you can use in addition with OBJ, then I think that you can continue. You can even roll with him against Cincy, I think.
Excellent.
For sure.
All right, well, to round out our show, we have a segment we like to call the Hometown Corner because we wouldn't be the Shy Guys if we didn't put a little extra time talking about our beloved Chicago Bears. We have run a bit bit long with the show today, so I'm giving you 5 minutes. I know you've got a lot to say.
Yeah,
But-
no, it's
Well, we've got some listeners and some watchers that aren't Bears hometown guys. So
this is why we need 5 episodes a week, man. Because I cannot squeeze five episodes worth of content into one episode. I can never do it. I'm still leaving so much on the table that I wish we had the chance to talk about today. But yeah, so hometown corner. Here's my little segment about the Bears. Look for Mitch to build some momentum and hopefully establish some consistency and confidence against the Giants next week. With another week to heal, I'm hoping to see Monty get some more of a workload. I'd really like to see him, what he can do against a worn down defense at like the end of the third, going into the fourth quarter type of thing. He didn't really. One, the Bears offense wasn't in a position to really lean on the running game that late in the game because obviously they had to make that comeback. And two, trusting that groin issue. It's always hard trusting a soft tissue injury. And so, the Bears offensive line did do a much better job blocking against Detroit, much better than they looked pretty much all season last year. A-Rob and Anthony Miller ready to make some plays now. A-Rob, now that's a story. Today he did that Twitter thing or an Instagram where he took off anything Bears related, really trying to send a message to the team. I guess it's kind of passive aggressive for me, but sure. But then he did reportedly ask for a trade, and so, man, as a Bears fan, that's just disheartening. Anthony, I said it Sunday. Anthony Miller is the hands down best wide receiver the Chicago Bears have had in franchise history. And this is one of the oldest franchises in the league. A-Rob is he's a monster. He's incredible. I'd love to see him get paid. It's tough with the cap scenario. I don't know the details of what the Bears are really working with. I don't know how much he's asking for versus how much room can we even afford with the salary cap what he wants. We can't put ourselves in a position where we can't give anyone else a contract extension, right? There are other guys that we need to re-sign too, and so. Man, I just hope we can keep A-Rob. I hope that it doesn't end up. I hope that it ends up more like the Raheem Mostert side, where like Mostert was asking for the trade. He wanted a little bit more money, and I think they gave him like $1 million per year, like extra. Just that little that little smidgen, just to make him. Obviously it's not going to
let you feel like you won this.
It's not going to be that cheap. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm hoping it's something like that because I would hate to see him go to another. The draft picks would be nice, but I'd rather just have A-Rob. I'd rather just have the dominant wide receiver one. That guy is, even when he's covered, he's open. And so, Anthony Miller's looking good, but he's not ready to take the spot of A-Rob quite yet. The tight end root group definitely looked better than it looked all last year, which is encouraging. Hopefully Jimmy Graham can stay healthy. I'd like to see him get into a little bit more of a rhythm with Trubisky, get those timing down. Yeah. Once they get that timing down, I think you'll see things look a lot better too. But, they should have a very solid season. And it should be easy sledding going against the Giants at home. So really, it's the Bears' woes with a slow start will be the looming monster in the closet. If they can get off to a quick start and really develop some rhythm early, that's the next step that the Bears offense really needs to take as a team, because that's really been their biggest issue. Plenty of times last year, they came out looking slow and just terrible in the first half, and you're like, oh no, here we go again. And then in the second half, they kind of pick it up a little bit. And even Mitch, in a lot of circumstances. And so what I'd really like to see is that stuff stops, and just from beginning to end, you just see consistent play across the board. It doesn't have to be great play.
Sure.
It doesn't have to be game break. We don't have to see what we saw in the fourth quarter all game long.
Right.
That's not what I'm advocating for at all.
That's not going to work all the time.
No, I would like to see that spread out throughout the game.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And so going 0 for 7 on your first on your first 7 third down possessions.
Yeah.
That's conversions. That's not going to get it done. Man, I screwed that. Can we cut that?
No. We're gonna do it live.
Thanks. Appreciate that. But no, I like what we're looking at as a team here. Before I'm sold and in, like I said, these first 2 weeks, they were going to be easy matchups. So I'd like to see us get some rhythm and momentum and really get some security going in, because Against Atlanta, I think that's going to test our defense,
Mm-hmm.
They got punched in the mouth
Yeah.
against Detroit. Detroit came out, especially in that first drive of the second half. They punched the defense in the mouth and it was nasty.
Yeah, there's no doubt. These early games, this is the time where you can recover from the mistakes, because after this, the mistakes are going to get more punishing.
Every team around the league, it took time. Look at the Steelers on Monday night. You know, it takes teams time to gel. It takes some time to work out the kinks and shake off the rust. And so you don't know what the real story with anybody is yet.
Mm-hmm.
So just hold your breath a little bit. Wait till week 3. After week 3, that's when I start to take my victory laps. You know, I made a lot of good calls going into the season. There were only 2 wrong calls that I made going into week 1. That's good.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that. I'm not taking any victory laps. And if all what I've been saying holds true through the end of week 3, then I'm taking my victory laps.
Yeah, definitely. This early in the fantasy season, you can't let emotion get in the way of it.
Do not overreact. Absolutely.
You got to remember that we're just getting into the season. We're just getting things together. All right. Well, with that, we will bring episode 1 of the 2020 Shy Guys Football Podcast season to a close. We want to thank you all for watching. We are looking forward to, hopefully from my end, a more exciting week 2 in the fantasy. And you probably just take another week 1 again, right?
Yeah,
that was good enough for you.
I'll take another 4 and do it.
All right, well, while we wait for that, in the meantime, if you want to get in touch with us, tell us about how your weeks went, hopefully better than mine. You can leave a comment down below right here on YouTube. You can shoot us an email at shyguysfootball@gmail.com.
We'll answer your questions live on the show.
Absolutely. Or tweet at shyguysfootball on Twitter. Until then, thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time. I'm Donny Mac with Anthony McCassick. We'll see you.
Peace out.